it's not, that's what I'm saying, it's not an exact or it's got to simplify this. Following the principle of high scores and not things that aren't really reported. The ability to manage network is, you've got that scoring for the junctions. So
it's the impact on the rest of the network.
Well,
so then you test the impact on High Street and Green End Road, which is not being clearly put on Green End, but the impact on the rest of the network.
Well, there is plans to be a session, next session on impacts, investigation, and social investigation.
But there's actually one investigation. You want one to do
well,
sorry, could I just say something? If we get on to this presentation, and then we have a presentation from the Residents Association, people will see an alternative. And if people score in accordance with this, what we have to make sure is that if there are concerns about the scoring mechanism here, when it comes to the presentation that's the alternative, we discuss that at the tables as well and score that in accordance with how we think that should be scored. But I do think we've got to get on, because look, it's 7:15, and what we've had is, till 8:15, we had 15 minutes late start. I do suggest that we allow Mr. Hicks to finish without any more interruptions. Then we get on to Michael Page and Charles Nisbet's presentation, and then we get on to discussing around the tables in our groups as to how we want to score and how we want to score the alternative presentation. I just urge us to get on. Otherwise, we're actually not going to do what it is that we really want to do, and that is achieve a response to this presentation and to the alternative. Please.
Excuse me, I know you don't want anybody to interrupt, but right at the beginning of the presentation you said you were only having bus lanes in one direction, and every slide you've shown shows inbound bus lanes. I think what you meant to say was you won't have bus lanes at both sides of the road at the same point. Can you just clarify?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, thank you.
So if there are any questions about the mechanism of redundant stand score system, I think we can answer that within the discussion session. Just shout at it. So basically what we want to do, you've got something that looks a bit like that in front of you. There should be 3 plans for each of those 5 areas. And so basically what we want to do is that the image is on right context. So the blank one there is for you to put pen to paper with the alternatives. The table there to score it, there's kind of, you can't see it, the left of this table with some dummy numbers in, just in case you're not sure which boxes you should be filling in. And so there are 3 of these, so we call it A, B and C, in case you've got 3 alternatives, alternative A, B and C. And if you need them, there's some blank plans. If you want to basically just doodle before you put pen to paper on this, there's some blank plans over here. There's some larger plans of the current designs here for reference if you do want them. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Michael Page, and I'm speaking on behalf of the First Parties Residents Association and our colleagues of the Milton Road Residents Association. Actually, some of us have found the last four workshops to be really useful, and to such an extent that some of us have carried on debating the workshops outside of this forum. We found ourselves working with other local residents and members of the cycling campaign to come up with some alternative design ideas. And I'd like to thank our LF chair and the officers for allowing us to share them with you. We believe that Milton Road could become an iconic example to others of how different modes of use can be accommodated safely together within a green and urban community environment. So I'd like to hand over to Matt Danish, who I've been working with on this, and we've all been working with, to take you through those ideas as quickly as we can. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much. Yes, in the interest of time, I'll be happy to take questions at the end. I do want to respect your time. Thank you. I want to start by saying, yes, we have taken some of the stuff that we've been talking about in the workshop to heart, and we have been thinking very much about how to make Milton Road a great place, as well as a street. And so if you plan cities for cars and traffic, you get cars and traffic. If you plan cities for people and places, you get people and places. That's President Fred Kent of the Project for Public Spaces in New York. At several of the presentations, at the workshops, you've given a presentation telling us about streets versus roads. Streets help create communities. Streets bring people together, not separate them. We would like to see that on Milton Road. A human-scale street. That means a pleasant landscape with abundant trees and plantings. We cannot have a Milton Road without abundant trees and plantings for it to be a human-scale street. We believe in separation between people walking, cycling, and driving. No shared space. And we believe in a hierarchy of priorities where people walking are first, and that means the infrastructure has good pavements, trees, and crossings for people walking. Next comes people cycling in this order of priorities. So you have separate cycle lanes, trees and crossings, of course. Public transport comes after walking and cycling. Of course, we do believe in good public transport, but not at the expense of our people walking and cycling. And that means it can be done with many, many other interventions, non-destructive interventions, like well-built bus stops, smart ticketing, better buses with multiple doors, other things that lower dwell time. We must not forget that deliveries are very important to the health of the community and the businesses along the road and the street. And finally, of course, we must accommodate private motor vehicles to an adequate amount, but not too much. Because remember, going back to Fred Kent's quote, if you plan for motor vehicles, you'll get motor vehicles. But if you plan for people, you get people. And we don't want to invite more traffic to clog up Milton Road. So this is kind of the ideal layout of what Milton Road could look like following these principles. You notice I've omitted the widths and the numbers because we understand that Milton Road is very variable. There are many local conditions. It changes in width. There are shops in places and other places there aren't. But this is what you might say is the goal. You have good, at least 2 meter wide pavements. You have cycleways that fit the need at that point. Some places that might mean two-way cycleways. Some places that might mean one-way. You have a good, amply wide verge to have strong, mature trees planted that will last for a lifetime. And in the middle, you have a carriageway that is sufficient, adequate, for the motor traffic that it must carry. So the key features to take away are the pavements and the cycle lanes are protected from motor traffic by trees and birches. The pavements are separate from the cycle lanes, and there are zebra crossings where they must cross. I will show you in a moment a safe roundabout design that we can use for places like Highwood Avenue. There are no bus lanes. Instead of using tarmac and concrete, you can use smart methods to achieve bus priority, ones that are not destructive, that don't take our environment and trash it. And keeping in mind that I am showing one possible design, but these principles can be applied in many different ways, and they can be adjusted to suit whatever the local conditions are, and of course whatever we find under the ground that can't be moved. This is the Highworth Avenue roundabout following these principles. There's a lot of text on there, and I will say right now, we have printouts we're going to put on every table showing this design so that people can look at it, and I'd be happy to answer all the questions that you can come up with about it. But the key points are, the big problem with the roundabout as it exists today is that there's high-speed motor traffic, making it very difficult for people walking and cycling to get by. This roundabout changes that kind of design. It's a design that's adapted from the Netherlands and from other northern European countries, and it acts as a traffic calming device, which slows down traffic under 20 miles per hour so that it can safely interact with people crossing. On each arm of the roundabout is placed a parallel walking and cycling priority crossing that has just been, this year, allowed in the UK. And what that does is, that means that it's like a zebra, basically, and alongside of it is also a cycle zebra, so to speak. But it's separate, so they're not crossing paths. Cycles are still separate from people walking. As a person walking, you would cross a zebra. As I said before, the principle is people walking have the highest priority. So you would cross a zebra on the cycle lane, you cross a zebra on the carriageway, and then on the other side you would cross the zebra on the cycle lane again to reach the buildings on that side. One of the key points here is that the roundabout is shrunken a bit. That covers a lot more green space on the outside of the roundabout, but it also slows down traffic so that it proceeds towards the crossings at lower speed. And the idea here is that drivers only face one challenge at a time. They approach the crossing, they only have to think about the crossing, and it's right in front of them. They don't have to crane their neck in a strange angle. They can see everything that's going on, all the lines of visibility are open. And once they pass the crossing, then they only have to worry about the roundabout with the cars in it. And the same thing on the exit, except in the opposite order. I'll move on. The benefits will be for this type of design, and we have, by the way, developed this concept along many of the sections of Milton Road, and we'll be happy to discuss those as well. But the biggest benefit we see is that it's going to be a step change in the way people approach Milton Road. Now it'll be seen as a safe place to walk and cycle. It'll get people out of their cars. It'll be a place that people want to be, not a place that people are just trying to get through. The use of roundabouts, in fact, these types of roundabouts from the Netherlands have been shown to be safer than traffic signal junctions because they keep speed slow, and ultimately speed is the killer. And so it's roundabout that acts as a traffic calming device, can maintain a slow and steady processing of traffic while being safe for people outside of cars as well. The urban environment will be much improved. There'll be great trees and verges and lots of more open public space to be programmed in whichever way you like. And of course, we believe that this will also produce a reduction in congestion and corresponding air pollution due to those benefits. And as Michael said, Milton Road could become an example for the entire country about how to design a safe and beautiful, multimodal street in a city. All right. We will put it down for questions. And, how do you want to approach the next step? I can take a question or two.
No, carry on. It's great.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, we'll bring out the drawings, yes.
Do you have any numbers to show about what the traffic capacity of this is? So I can imagine the objection from the it might be, well, it will reduce the capacity of how much throughput you would expect from that compared to
Yes, thank you. The question is, how much traffic could this process? Will this lower traffic capacity? In the Dutch manuals, traffic engineering manuals, these types of roundabouts with just a single lane on the inside are rated up to 25,000 passenger car units per day, which is quite a bit. And honestly, if you're seeing more than that, we're doing something else wrong. But there are other things that can be done, and I'll let Robin continue there if you want.
So the geometry of that roundabout is pretty much exactly the same as Radigan Road roundabout on Ring Road. It's actually carrying more cars now than it was when it was a faster flowing junction. Because the cars going slower, it means you can actually fit more cars between others. So it actually works better for cars and better for people who are walking and cycling.
That's correct. The higher speeds can actually reduce capacity because they need more gaps between, larger gaps between cars to be safe. Charles.
You haven't shown us Arbury Road, Union Lane, and I know that, but can you just say whether your vision includes keeping Union Lane open?
Yeah, yes, I can, and yes, it does include keeping Union Lane open and approaching other methods for calming traffic on Union Lane itself.
Thank you very much.
I can actually show some other slides if people are interested in time.
Hello, could you talk a bit more about the idea of putting the bikes on the sort of pavement side of the streets with respect to pedestrians wandering into the cycle lane or cyclists having to cross each junction along the way as opposed to having a straight route up and down this road? I think particularly of commuter cyclists coming into work.
Right, so the question is, can I address how the separation between cycling and walking is achieved, and how that would look at side road junctions. I can show some of that. So in the Netherlands, the separation is achieved with basically actually something similar to what the Cambridge curve is. And basically, it's a slight change in level, so that anyone who goes over it knows they've wandered into the other territory, so to speak. There are various treatments we can use to work on what the separation should be precisely, but I believe it works well in the Netherlands, and I don't see any reason why we can't at least consider it here. For side road junctions, the path is relatively straightforward. It's not, there will be, in our vision, there's priority for people walking and cycling over side road junctions. It's not like today where you have to stop and look every time you reach a side road. But that means, yes, the design of the side road junctions needs to take that into account. We've used ideas like from the workshops, such as Copenhagen crossings, to draw that in. Yes. How does this fit priority to public transport? So there are several things. So the carriageway design that we're choosing here is wide enough to permit passing of vehicles, for one thing, and it's wider than the 3 meters. We have actually done these drawings with wider carriageway lanes than the consultants have proposed for the city deal, just to see if it would work, and it does. The bus stops will be built up properly so that you can actually have level step reporting. We expect that in the future, the bus company will be using buses with multiple doors that support smart ticketing, so that instead of waiting for everyone to queue up at the front, stops by buses could take no more than 30 seconds because they can easily load everybody on and off without requiring any steps. You can easily get on and off the bus. This is how it goes in other countries such as Denmark and the Netherlands, where you'll find such systems. And the benefit of this is that we don't need to rip up large portions of the road for bus lanes when we can do it with smart methods instead. So we're showing what could be achieved with smart methods alone. We could have a much better street, in other words, by doing things like signal priority and lowering dwell time, and all there's a whole bunch of things that we can get into. Take the next question.
Yeah, certainly. I travel by bus in London, and the ticketing there is smarter, and the average stop time is uncommon. Not usually but the point about it is it needs to be done comprehensive across the city, because what you've done, I think, is reduce the city where you stop trying to define the whole road. Do
Yes, thank you. That's correct. By having, actually, I want to expand on that point you made about it being citywide, because what the consultants have proposed is basically maybe they're saying a savings of some seconds on a Milton Road itself. But what I'm proposing is if the buses are actually fixed properly, that's going to be a benefit for the entire city. It's going to mean buses are much more attractive all over the city, not just a few seconds on Milton Road, which we don't believe will actually make a difference.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
First of all, we do have smart ticketing on the buses. We can't have double doors because most of the infrastructure within Cambridge doesn't allow you to get off on the centre door. Has your plan taken account of the fact that they're building 10,000 houses at water reach? And how do you expect people to get in when you're going to slow down the journey times of the current buses? You're actually making public transport worse, so you're going to encourage more people to come in by car.
The question was, how do we get an additional 10,000 people, you said, onto buses down Milton Road? Well, also, I want to just say quickly that we have provided space for bus stops that are long enough for multiple doors, of course. And so...
Not for the rest of the city.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You start on Milton Road. So the answer is that sending all those people down Milton Road on buses is not the solution. This is a much wider ranging question that's outside the scope of this particular session. I would love to get into it. I don't want to waste people's time. But we have a high capacity corridor.
That is the scope of this session.
An actual
That
corridor.
was on the first agenda item.
It's called the railway line, and we're going to have 3 stations there in a few years' time, it appears. And it seems to me that focusing around the existing infrastructure instead of trying to jam through a brand new bus corridor, basically, down a street where people live is the answer to that.
Couple of things. One is the...
Yeah.
I think... I think 2 things. One is about the point you made about when the traffic's slower, you can actually get more traffic down the road. I remember one of the meetings, the suggestion that we should look at a 20 mile an hour down the Milton Road. So I'm interested to know whether you've got any views on that, because it might actually speed up the traffic. And the second thing is, really maybe at the buses, I don't know if this is correct or not, but at the meeting the other day, the regrouping meeting, was suggesting if you only have buses as a solution, that if there are 200 buses an hour going into the city centre at the busiest time. And I don't know whether that is actually true or not, but that's an analysis that's been done. And if so, how does this relate to what might be happening in the city centre? My concern is, it's always been in the city deal, but we deal with piecemeal bits of the equation. And I think that's the problem that Andy Campbell's just referred to. It's not his fault, but that's the way it seems to be. So it's stopping us actually being innovative, which is what we need to do.
Only do something or do maximum only got things going faster down Milton Road if it worked perfectly. There was never a plan for getting it away from Mitchams Corner or across the Elizabeth Bridge. It's just going to bottle up.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The first question is, would a 20 mile per hour zone be appropriate here? And I am certainly open to the idea. And certainly it could also be considered in sections. For example, around where the shops are, and wherever you have lots of people who want to cross the road, or cross the street, I should say, then I think it should be definitely put on the table as a possibility. The other question is a bit, as you said, we need to think about things more holistically. Does it make sense to send something like 300 buses per hour into the city center? The city center, in my view, we want to preserve it. It's a historic site, and sending that many heavy vehicles into the city center isn't actually possible. But again, this is getting out of scope. And as I said before, I believe that the answer is to use the existing railway line resources that we have and not try to send phalanx of buses down Milton Road.
Sorry, I think, could we take on board what Jocelyn said earlier? Because I really feel to the city board, the city guild board, and we should have an opportunity of doing that. But one thing that I would suggest that really should go back from this meeting, which is outside the scope, is that there seems to be a general feeling in the room that there is no overview of what's going to happen, and there is no overview of what's going to happen in the city centre, and all of these things are related, and I would ask that that is fed back by the consultants, to the LLF and to the City Guild Board, is the general lack of understanding of how this fits in with other skills.
Thank you very much. And yes, I will be answering questions offline so that people can get on with the workshop. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Yeah, can we start the workshop sessions now? I think we're running short of time. The presentation has taken up longer than anticipated. I'm proposing that we work for 45 minutes at the workshop. We'll make the two coffees whilst we're working. Come and grab one, and we'll have a quick feedback till about 8:30 or 8:35. Okay?